Man, it's the RockstaKnarley Show, man. We back with another installment. We here joined with a very special guest, a very talented person. And I love his @ name on Instagram too. It's Jetty number 5. So explain to us and to everybody that's watching what's your career and your path of like the things that you do. Like,
well, that's I don't think that's the actual question or the actual answer you're looking for. With my actual career, like I mean, I do stuff outside of cosplay. Surprise! I blew it. I blew the magic. He's done. He's not a professional cosplayer. He's fake. No, but seriously, so I'm a cosplayer. I'm a leather worker, amongst other like random nerdy hobbies. But our paths crossed because of my, I'll say, not so secret identity under the mask. So for those of you who don't know, I'm
Deadpool. Identity revealed.
Character unlocked.
A new challenger has entered the arena.
You unlocked a new costume.
But nah, man. So I actually came across you. I was at the Comic-Con in Greenville, and I was just vlogging, and I got some dope content with him. I haven't even put it out yet, but now's a good time following this one. And I was just so ecstatic with like your charisma, how in depth you went in with it. Like you wasn't an a-hole for our audience that's not over 18. And it was just dope, man. And then we just started connecting from there. But like, what got you into doing cosplay?
You know, that's kind of funny because spoiler alert, I wasn't always a cosplayer. So part of my origin story is that I had friends that used to go to Comic-Cons all the time. And it was probably a good like 2 or 3 years where they were consistently like, oh, you should go to this, you should go to this. And at that point in time, I wasn't really like active in that space. I had like just kind of moved to where I was at and, you know, was not really doing that thing. And then finally, one year a friend of mine had tickets for this event and she hits me up and says, oh, hey, I'm going to this con this weekend and like I really needed somebody to go with me because my friend dropped out and I just don't want to go by myself. And so I was like, oh, well, sure. You know what kind of crappy friend am I if I don't go? My friend's got a ticket. She wants me to go. So yeah, sure. So I went. And it's funny because a lot of times like in like the, I don't want to say like, you know, nerdy, you know, hobby space. Like some of the stuff is, if you're not necessarily like part of it, or you're not actively involved in it, you don't fully understand what's going on until you just like give it a try. Yeah. And so for me, I went the first time to kind of people watch, to hang out and like support my friend, whatever. And then after the con, I was like, okay, I can totally see why people do this. Like this is a lot of fun. So I'll tell you what, you know, you got my ticket this year. I know that like I was kind of coming out here, you know, because you need somebody to go with. But I'll tell you what, next year I got the tickets, and next year I'll actually do a cosplay, and like we'll do it right next year. And so I did, and I've been in the space ever since for the most part.
Man, that seems like a definite ill story, like a nice ass story to have into jumping into something new. Because then it's just like that much more that you care about it because it's somebody close to you that got you into it, man. That's dope. Favorite anime? That's a question that I definitely had. Like, I'll give you top 3.
Top
if you had
3.
to do a top 3.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you that my top 2 will be My Hero Academia, which I know is a bit newer than most people are expecting. Oh, fake weeb, you know. So My Hero Academia and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood would be my top 2. And the reason I say that is because those are the 2 out of any of the anime that I watched. Those are the 2 that have had moments during what I've seen of them that have actually like made me like, oh my gosh, like tears, kind of like feeling like, wow, this is like powerful. Like the way that they did this was really powerful. If you did not cry when Ed saw Alphonse's body on the other side of the portal for the first time and that door slammed shut, and then it comes back open and he's just like, I'm coming back for you. Like, if you didn't cry when you see that, like, yeah. So those would be my top 2. And then the third one is going to be, I don't know, whatever like strikes my fancy at the time.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, that's yeah, I was going to say.
Should we let it marinate?
Yeah, let's let that one marinate.
He wasn't ready for that question. He wasn't ready.
I love most anything that like Trey Parker and Matt Smith do. Matt Stone, oh my gosh. Trey Parker and Matt Stone. I had for a moment I had like Doctor Who in my head there, or you know, House of Dragons for a second. Yeah. But no, it's the creators of South Park. So the creators of South Park are brilliant. Like
they're still putting out South Park.
They're still putting stuff out, but like satire. I absolutely love satire. So and when you are in a space like that to create and be like just on top of like pop culture, like as it's happening, like you know those guys have got their finger on the pulse of that kind of stuff. And also when you got that stance of like, I don't want to say like nobody's safe, but nobody's safe, right? When you try to draw those lines in your comedic stylings of like, oh, like I can't talk about this topic over here, like that has to be protected or whatever. Then I feel like you kind of lost some of your comedic integrity. Obviously, there's a point where you want to be sensitive to things that are going on. There's certain jokes that are just not cool to make, regardless.
And it's like they make fun of everybody, so nobody can't feel like they're sectioning somebody out.
Right.
That's the people that got that gray where they don't have that comedic bone, and they always think about they're not there to laugh. If you're gonna go and watch a comedian, you have to be there to laugh.
Absolutely.
So, I got a good question. So, is there any time when you're Deadpool? Is there moments when it's a lot of people around and it gets like overwhelming?
Part A, yes. Part B, no. I am one of those people that, for the most part, I have an endless social battery. So yeah, there's a lot of times where I'll go to certain conventions where you kind of become an attraction. This happens with people who do like big elaborate cosplays. It happens with me with Deadpool just because I tend to be chatty with people and just banter with people. People want to get funny pictures with Deadpool and whatever. So yeah, so there are certain times where I'll wind up with like a good crowd of people around me, but I don't get overwhelmed by that. I think that I guess I'll draw attention to maybe not necessarily the overwhelming part of it, but if you want to talk about like a quote-unquote problem, if you will, in that space, is the nature of social media and when people watch things on certain social media platforms, like videos that go viral and stuff like that. The problem comes in is that there are a large number of people in the space that maybe don't realize that some of those videos are staged, or don't realize that to try to replicate some TikTok trend or another, like, is not an appropriate course of action. You haven't talked to somebody about it. And so as Deadpool, like, I wouldn't say, like, overwhelming, but, like, we'll call it inappropriate, is I've had any number of times where people will literally try to, like, grab one of the holster, or the guns, like, out of my holster and just try to, like, just pull on it. Usually it doesn't go anywhere past that, and I get to make a joke about their pull-out game not being very good. And usually after the fact, like, I'll take a moment to say, like, hey, look, like, I know you didn't mean anything malicious by this, but understand that if you had done this to anybody else, you could have gotten thrown out of the convention. And I don't want to see, like, somebody, like, they're trying to have, like, an innocent, funny moment. Like, I don't want to see them get thrown out of the con for that. But also, I don't want to see them do something where, like, if they grab it and pull on it and, like, tears part of a suit or something, that's even worse in a way that, like, now they're like, oh my gosh, like, I just did this thing and I got thrown out. Or I did this thing and now this person's mad at me. Like, there's a lot of misunderstanding that can just be avoided by, first of all, saying, like, hey, can we do this? Is it cool if we do this? Whatever, as opposed to just thinking they're going to be funny and do it. But even, I would say, like, I don't say, like, worse than that, but, like, kind of down that line is, you've had creators that are in, like, I'll call it the Deadpool space, as it were, that make videos that, at the end of the day, the nicest way that I can say it is they're basically, like, grab-ass videos. They're videos of, like, Deadpool, like, upskirting some girl, or, like, grabbing some girl's ass, or grabbing somebody's prop and throwing it, whatever. And again, it's like, these are the kind of things that if you do that at a convention, that's a great way to get, knocked out, and get thrown out of a convention, because you were trying to be funny, you were trying to, like, monkey see, monkey do. It's basically what it boils down to. Is they see something, they don't realize that it's staged or whatever, they try to repeat it because they think, oh, I'm getting funny if I do this. And then
just go to Comic-Con and stay in your lane, man. Have your joy, and don't do anything that could cause other people to have a bad time.
Well, a lot of it, at the end of the day, just boils down to, like, talk to people. Ask people, like, hey, I had this funny thing that I saw on TikTok, like, have you seen this? Like, can we do this? And if they say no, okay, cool, no problem. I still want to get pictures with you, or, like, I still want to chat with you. But yeah, no, like, it's funny because I also cross paths with people who are, like, first-time con-goers, and they will either be like, oh, like, I didn't know, like, I could ask you for pictures, or, like, I was too afraid to ask you for pictures because I didn't want to bother you and whatever. And cosplayers love to get asked for pictures. Like the only time that you should maybe, like, stay in your lane, or, like, maybe take a step back, is if they're half out of their costume, if they're eating, they're drinking, whatever, they're taking a break.
The bathroom.
They're going to the bathroom or something, but by all means, if you say, like, hey, like, I know you're eating right now, is it possible that I can grab you for pictures later on? Sometimes what happens is if a cosplayer's going to eat and leave, they might be like, oh yeah, sure, just give me 2 seconds, and they might do it right there. Or if they're going to be like, hey, I'm on a break right now, give me like 15 or 20, I'll find you around here somewhere, I'll be walking around in a bit, and, please, like, stop me for pictures at that point.
So it kind of boils down to open communication. Like,
man, so many problems in our world today can be solved by the power of communication.
Facts. That was a good insight on. I never really thought about it from like the other side of the fence, but hearing you say that, like when I saw you, I remember I was like standing with like some zombie stormtroopers or something, and I was like, oh shit, I see Deadpool over there. I was like, I gotta get some footage, but he's talking to somebody else. I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait till he's done talking to them, and then I'm gonna come in and ask him, do you mind if I record? Like, I feel what you're saying.
No, see, and that's perfectly appropriate, because here's the thing: is if you'd done that, or if you walked over and said, "Hey, man, like I know you're in a conversation right now, but like when you're done, like can we shoot some stuff?" Either way, it would have been totally cool. What a lot of us cosplayers don't like is I'll call it like the drive-by, where you're like having a conversation with somebody, you see somebody like do this, they like walk by, they're like taking a picture, because you're not going to get a good picture that way. Mm-hmm. Like and again, most cosplayers they love it when you ask them for pictures, and so they're going to want to give you the best picture that you can get.
You remember you mentioned that you were in a band, starting off early in life.
I was.
Let the people know about it.
So I was in a punk rock band before my cosplay days. So yeah, a lot of the same, I'll say, people interacting skills kind of crossed over from doing the band stuff to doing cosplay stuff. A lot of the same, I guess, if you call it social energy for like interacting with people and just hanging out, bantering with people. Same kind of deal. Yeah. So yeah, I played in a punk rock band. I was the singer, frontman, and I wrote most of the lyrics and some of the music. I had a great group of people like when we were doing that. We a lot of fun, all over the Virginia Beach area. Like that's roughly like where that was. But we did some stuff up and down the East Coast a little bit here and there. That shenanigans from a different age.
Yeah,
and fun times.
He was in the A. He did music too.
Yeah, I was a recording artist, but like things don't work out, and you get to see the good side and kind of the dark side in the beginning. It's your choice if you want to stick with that type of stuff. But if stuff falls apart in like a group that you were with and it don't work out, as far as like everybody has a common goal until we get that common goal accomplished. Everybody wanted to be Jordan. Nobody wanted to be Pippen or Kukoc. Everybody just wanted to just be Jordan, and it doesn't work like that. So when everything fell out, it's just like, okay, then I went to battle rap, and then from there, it's just like, you know what? I'm getting older now. I can't keep chasing a dream. I still do music from time to time. I write music, this, that, and the third. I mess around with it. As far as making it like something that substantial right now, nah. I could do other things and see we doing the RockstaKnarley show. So it's like I got different things that I'm doing. So
well, sometimes you kind of take a hiatus from a thing, and then you come back and you find that either the climate has changed or you find out you got more passion for it. So I mean, when I started doing cosplay stuff, there was a period where I took a break for a couple years. So I started cosplaying when I was in Virginia. I took a break when I was doing more in the other hobby spaces that I was in, and then I moved down here to North Carolina. Somewhere along the way, I wound up going back to conventions again. I can tell you pretty much a buddy of mine who does a lot of photography work in the cosplay space. Like he and I actually met through a different hobby. Somewhere along the way, started talking, and then we ended up starting to go to cons together. And then all of a sudden, this whole idea started snowballing. Like here I am doing cosplay stuff, he's doing photography stuff. We're talking ideas about how to promote, how to do all this other stuff, and it just kind of keeps going and going and going and going. So yeah, good friend of mine, John V. Photography, like he and I kind of, I don't know, reignited like our journeys on that path, almost like, in a weird sort of way, like a D&D party, like, meeting up and, two adventurers meet up in a tavern and like, our aims align and, we end up going on this epic quest together, so.
It's kind of like how life goes, man. You just gotta take your character and build up your attributes. If you basically take life like that, like in the video game aspect, and do that in real life, you're gonna be unstoppable.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just gotta take that. Gotta have a passion. Gotta have a drive. Just keep pushing through it, man. Keep pushing through it. We started from nothing. Like we had one or two cameras. Like look, we had this camera, right? We didn't even have the GoPro
camera.
We just had this one. None of the lights.
None of this.
Boards, all this setup. We didn't have none of that. We just turned on the camera and started talking.
Sitting on that couch.
It's been a year now. We ain't got as far as like subscribers and stuff like that. We ain't got that far, but as much as we put into it, as far as the passion and how much we do, it's gonna catch on. You just gotta keep going. Man.
Yeah.
Gotta keep going.
Yeah, no, certainly. So then I have to ask the question, like, is this the 1-year anniversary show?
Ooh.
Did you get Deadpool for the 1-year anniversary show?
It's not. It's damn near close.
It's close. It's very close. And then on top of that, man, look, hey, you get to sign this table too, because you are the very first person. This is the very first time that we've had this table on the show.
First person ever to sign a table.
Number 1, baby.
Number 1.
So let's see. You said I don't want to be like too large and ostentatious with it, but like let's get it like maybe like right here. All right, so let's go with.
For sure.
Hell yeah.
But we like to interview people that are doing things and out there in the community. They have some kind of want to inspire people. Because we've been throwing ideas back and forth as far as inspiring each other as far as content and stuff like that. So I'm liking this. I'm liking this.
Yeah. It's like creators coming together. Everybody got their own niche and like,
Absolutely.
but it's like coming together for positivity and not just for negative reasons or malicious or cocky asshole reasons.
And learning, because a lot of this stuff I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
Like, I had a question about LARPing. Like, what is LARPing to you?
Uh-oh, my other secret identity has been exposed. No, so for those of you who don't know, LARPing is live action role playing games. So it's kind of like D&D in real life. What I'll suggest is that there are no two LARPs that are the same. So I, like, for as much as I do convention stuff now, I used to do LARPing. So North Carolina has a lot of games. I've played any number of games over the past couple of years. So there was a point where before I was doing con, like character appearances, boom, 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 boom. If there was a LARP game going on, I was trying to go and cross game at like various games to try out the different games because I was very active in that space. So again, no two games are the same. You're going to have some games that are more like full contact action sport. You're going to have some games that are more like a improv theater, like live action improv theater.
Okay.
Some of these games are, for one day. Some of these games last an entire weekend. Some of these games have combat that is full contact. Some of these games have like no contact.
Oh, so they really out there fighting.
So
not like
yeah. So the weapons at LARP games, they're padded. Like typically the philosophy is like for some of those like I'll call it lighter contact games is you're padding your weapons so you don't necessarily have to pad your people as much. But then there are other games, games, because some people don't like that you call their games. They're thinking game. I was going to call it the skates. I mean, shoot. But yeah, no, the point is that, you have everything from things that are like, high fantasy, character acting stuff to things that like borderline are, hit more historically based, etc. And people feel different ways about different things like within that space. Padding your weapons more so you don't have to pad your people. And then some places, like I said, they lean more into like sort of the interactive theater side of it, whereas some places are more like, this is like an action sport, kind of like paintball or airsoft, but you've got your medieval garb and you've got your padded weapons and stuff.
we gotta go to one of them, man.
Yeah.
I want to smack somebody with a padded sword just to say I did. If I gotta get hit back, that's fine. Because, sir, can I hit you with this padded
What's the
sword?
name of that? What is called? Role models?
That's the one.
Yeah, when they like hit you in the leg and they would like hop.
Oh,
over
you
the
gotta hop
leg.
around, yeah.
They were taking over the like fast food place and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I'll tell you a fun fact about that movie. So when I was more involved in the LARPing space, right, and that movie first came out, I was doing panels at conventions, like anime conventions. I was doing panels with LARP. So I was doing either demonstrations or I was there with another LARP that was doing panels or whatever. And the number of times that I would have somebody come up to me like, hey, so have you seen this movie, Role Models? And like, they'd be like does that offend you? Like, does that movie offend you? And I'd be like, no, like actually, like, I think it's hilarious. Number one, because when they made Role Models, they actually, like, all of the people that were in the LARP, or the majority of the people that were in the LARP, right, what they did is they went out to a local chapter of one of their LARP games. And they pulled a lot of those people in to be like both extras and like consultants on the subject material.
Yeah.
So like when they make fun of certain things in that game, like as a LARPer who knows what like roughly like what rule system those things came from, you can be like, oh shoot, like that's really funny because that makes fun of like this trope that is in our actual game.
Yeah.
And, like it's almost like if you frequent the Comic-Con space, right? And then you write like a comedy that involves like Comic-Con and some of the funny things that you see at con, like the tropes of being at a convention, right? When you're writing that comedy from like a standpoint where like about the subject material, and then also you're presenting it in a way that's less like, oh, look at these like pathetic nerds like doing this thing, and more of a matter of like, okay, we all know about every aspect of our life where there is something really funny about like what we do, what we believe,
for
or
sure.
the people we hang around or whatever. That's why we rip on our friends. Like we rip on our friends more than we do most anybody else, And so like when you're in that space and you're able to be good humored about the thing, like when you can like literally laugh at the thing that you're involved in because the comedy is coming from a place of knowledge, like you're great, you're golden. So so Role Models was fantastic when it came to LARPing.
And then they brought more light to it. So if somebody might be interested later on, they were like, yo, I want to see what this really about. Just because it was seen in a movie that was, it might have looked like it was making fun of it. It doesn't matter. It's just, if you know how to laugh, laugh. If you don't,
And I'll tell you what. When you get to the LARPing episode, some friends of mine right now are actually developing a new LARP, and so that LARP is actually going to be out towards the Raleigh area. And so that's why I say, like, when we get around to the LARP episode, if they've got stuff off the ground and rolling, like, I could definitely connect those dots for you guys.
Oh,
and
yeah,
kind of see it live and in action, and in a place, that would be like really like willing to accommodate like that stuff.
yeah, definitely. Like, hey, look, this is a new venture, man. We're gonna jump over here and see what we find interested on that end. We might be superheroes. We might want to be in cosplay, or we might want to LARP. We don't know. Right now, we're learning about it, and that's what y'all should be doing too.
Take notes. When I saw that movie, I was like, man, that shit look fun as hell.
Yeah.
But how long do they stay in character? Like, do you think? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, no, you're right there, man. Like this, he's been doing research. He just didn't want to fess up to it yet.
Doing research.
No, so like I said, different games, they last different durations. So like you might have a game that's just an afternoon, it's more of an action sport than it is like an actual like a role-playing game per se. Then you're gonna have games that last like an entire weekend or most of a weekend, and a common thread through a lot of LARPs is the concept of like being in or out of character, right? And so a lot of those games that last through the weekend, you are in character as much as you want to be. And so they have rules around like how you go out of play and out of character and whatever. Or for a situation like, let's say for example, like we're at a LARP right now. We're sitting in the tavern and we're like, our characters are talking, we're having this conversation like this, right? And like let's say like I just lash out verbally at you guys. Like I'm just like you guys like we're having some kind of disagreement, right? Good characteristic or good sort of like reaction as like a LARPer. Like if I'm having this really aggressive roleplay with you. This is kind of seen as a general sign of like, hey, this is me being out of play now. Right?
Oh, okay.
So like, if I sit here and I yell at you, like because our characters have some kind of disagreement.
Yeah.
Typically, it's good. It's like kind of like in good form. That's what I was looking for. It's kind of in good form for me to then take a second and be like, hey, I'm a character. Like you guys are still good, right? Like Johnny is the player. Like I'm not mad at you guys. Like our characters, like we had this moment. Like we're still good, right? And if you guys can be like, yo, like I'm digging this. Like I love this so much. But also, sometimes you don't have your good days. And you might be like. Like I understand, like we're in character, but just if we dial it back just a little bit, then we'd be good.
So we did.
Yeah, and again, it's at the end of the day, in that hobby space, what you're doing is you're doing collaborative storytelling. So you're trying to have that cool moment where our characters have like a tense sort of like I don't know if we're gonna like scrap right here in the tavern, but like we had this like kind of like bit where we just rubbed each other the wrong way, and some of those role playing situations are some of the best role playing situations.
It's like when you get killed, you later. Do they like eventually like 10 minutes like have a medic or somebody drag you off, or do you just kind of like out the way? Like...
Again, different rule sets are going to have different ways to handle that. Usually, what happens is in a lot of those games, you have a certain period of time. If you've been hit for more hit points than you've got, you're in some kind of status where you're like bleeding out. People can come and apply first aid. Medic is kind of a reserved word because again it's an action sport to some capacity. So like if somebody like hits me upside the head and I'm seeing stars, I might actually call medic, and that's me. Like I need somebody out of play to come help me. I don't need a healer. I need a medic, right? And so what happens is you might have a situation where like you're at this status effect which could be healed by certain first aid skills or certain magic or whatever. And then after a certain period of time, now you're at like dead status, where it might require a certain higher level of magic to pick you up. And then usually in those games, after a certain period of time, whether it's like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, it's just assume that like your body like turns to dust. And if you have life force to go resurrect somewhere, then there's resurrection system for like how that plays out. It varies game to game. But nobody's laying there on the field for like 2 hours before somebody finds them, like drag them off, whatever. It's not that quote unquote based in reality, if you will.
It's very creative, like your niche in life, but you can also not put yourself in one box. So you can be expressive to do whatever the hell you want.
Well, it's for a while. It's why I did both. Like for a long time, I was doing both, and my focus shifted. For a while, LARP was more my main thing, and then just the cosplay thing just started snowballing and taking off, and I was getting more traction and having a lot more fun with that. And so I took a break from LARP to focus more on the cosplay thing, and then the cosplay thing has kind of blown up in like a bigger way than I could have ever expected. So.
Yeah. How did you get into leatherworking?
Through LARP, actually. No, I take that back. So I dabbled with leatherworking a long time ago in a location far away. Before the advent of Hot Topic. So, so I know I date myself a little bit with that, but no, I grew up in BFE where we didn't really have Hot Topic or anything like that. But I've always been into like punk rock and ska and skating and stuff like that. And
I shot at Hot Topic.
So
I got my shirts from there.
Like 15 years.
My wallet chains,
Yeah. So whatever the case is, back in the day, like you couldn't really get like things like studded belts or spike bracelets and stuff just out of store, like or at least any kind of like not specialty store. And so I made my own. And so I did that. I kind of took a break from it for a little bit, as I was doing other things in life, because at that point I also I'd made what I made for myself, and I didn't really necessarily do it as like a go out and like make them for this or make them for that. Etsy wasn't a thing, and whatever. But so fast forward some time, and I get into like the LARPing community, as it were. And a good friend of mine is a rather large dude, 6'10", worth of large dude. And when you're that big of a guy, trying to find armor and stuff that fits you is kind of a challenge.
Yeah,
and so. We were doing this thing, and he was like, "Yeah, I really want to get some armor, but to buy it, like I'm going to run the risk of it not fitting me, or it's like I don't like the style, or this or that, the other thing." And just one day out of the blue, he says to me, "Hey, so if I buy the tools and if I buy the materials and stuff, will you help me make this?" He goes, "I understand that you don't necessarily do this, that this isn't something that you practiced or whatever." He goes, "But." He goes, "I am confident that you have more of sort of the skill set needed to do this, and so if it's messed up or whatever a little bit along the way, because I don't care, I'm not going to try to blame you for it or anything." He goes, but the results that you're going to get, I feel like they're going to be better than the results that I'm going to get. And so my response to him was along the lines of okay, I will absolutely help you do this. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to take this home and try to figure out how to do this. I'm going to come over to your house. We're going to try to do this thing, right?
No freebies.
Well, it was less about freebies and more about to his point, I'd never done anything like that at that point in time. And so for me to try to tackle a project like that, having never done it and not have him on hand for me to be sizing stuff as I'm going along the way, make sure that the translation of pattern to leather is actually working properly and whatever, it would have been just awful for me to try to do that. Yeah. And so, we ended up making up his entire first set of armor that we did. Because he was basically willing to come to the table and I'll call it basically front the money for the tools and the materials and whatever, and he was entrusting that my I don't want to even call it skill set at that point, but my ability to improvise, we'll call it that, my ability to improvise. He was trusting that was going to be able to carry us from zero to a result that he was going to be happier with than if he had done it by himself. And so we did that, and then I ended up kind of trying my hand at making some of my own stuff at that point. And so things kind of snowballed a little bit from there. Anybody who knows, I guess, more in depth the stuff that I do make, I tend to do a lot of custom builds. That's kind of number one. I do a lot of custom builds. So I'll side tangent for 2 seconds and say that I jokingly will tell people that I make collars for people's pets and their pets. So I do custom collars and cuffs and that kind of nature of things. But then also I did a lot of accessories for LARP and Ren Fair and stuff.
Did you make those?
So,
I'm sorry to cut you off. You made those bracelets?
Yeah, so I did make those too. Those are kind of rather simple things that I've made. These other ones are ones that people that I see at cons made for me, and so I just I wear them. I love it when people bring me little stuff like that. So I end up wearing it out with whatever else I'm wearing. But for the armor stuff, I purpose build a lot of stuff. So with Deadpool and with my LARP stuff, there's a lot of modularity and sort of multi-purpose built into what I built. Mm-hmm. So it's always, on one part, it's always amusing when I have people say "Oh my God, your Deadpool is so screen accurate." But I'm actually I'm the least screen accurate out of a lot of the high-end Deadpools because I like to build stuff that is again, it's modular, but also kind of crosses that gap between this is what you see on screen, But this is maybe what's more believable in real life, or it has like gimmicks that are built into it that are very Deadpool in nature. Yeah. Some of them I built, some of them I've acquired along the way. Like on my harness that I wear for Deadpool, I've got on the one side, I've got like a little Spider-Man heart pin that I made. I converted it from a different thing altogether. But then I also have a button, which I will always say is literally the best $2 purchase I've ever made. And it's just a little black button with red writing on it. It says, keep calm. No, actually don't. I'm Deadpool. which is a very, in my opinion, is a very Deadpool thing to like wear on the harness.
And I like the QR code when you had to flip up.
So the QR code actually, like, I can't even take credit for that. That was actually Amway Anime, who... That's I'll call them a sponsor of mine, but also like an organization that I'm a part of. So Amway Anime partners up with charities that do like when there were natural disasters that happened in Haiti. So the owners are Haitian, and there were a number of charities that kind of like were right there on the ground, like helping with the recovery efforts when all that stuff happened. And so what Amway Anime did is they said, hey, we want to partner with these charities, right? And we want to use cosplay and conventions as a way to basically push sort of these charity initiatives that are supporting these charities that were here during like this time of need. And so what they've done is they've taken sort of various cosplayers that they have, kind of pulled from the community, like they've crossed paths with them at conventions. At least that's my origin story with them, is they saw me as Deadpool at a convention. They pulled me aside. They were talking with me about, what they do and all this other stuff. And, we've been looking for a Deadpool, and unless you tell us that Ryan Reynolds himself is here in the suit, like, you're the best Deadpool we've ever seen. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so touched. But anyway, so we start talking about charity work and everything, and I absolutely love that. I love when people do like the costume characters, heroes, and whatever, and they do charity work with that. Like, it's just, to me, that's such a wholesome thing to do. So they brought me in, and they made me the I don't want to call it the face of, because I'm the mask of, really, but they made me as Deadpool. They made me their sort of their spokesperson or their figurehead, if you will, their figurehead for the Wounded Warrior Project. So I am, for Amway Anime, I am quote unquote Code Silver, which is the Wounded Warrior Project. So whenever they do charity stuff with that, they like share me, or they'll use me like in their sort of promotional materials for Wounded Warrior, which I think is super cool.
We wanted to know about, what was the first con you went to?
So the first convention, what I mentioned earlier, that would have been NecoCon, so up in Virginia. And around about that time, I think that was probably like quote unquote I don't want to say the only convention, but it was like the big anime convention that was up in Virginia, like when I lived up there. And then when I moved down here, talking about going to cons with John when we started kind of doing this thing again, was Animazement. So NecoCon actually was just this past weekend. So a couple of our friends, like, we went up and we did the NecoCon thing. Yeah. So John and I went for, we got to keep that streak going solid. Like, I can't go to Neco without him. And then I also had a good friend of mine, Jenna Say What, was with me as well. And we went up, we did the thing, we came back super late last night, thankfully for daylight savings time helping us that way on the way back. But Animazement here in North Carolina would have been like my first con back after taking that hiatus from cosplay that I mentioned earlier too.
Yeah. What's some advice do you have? What's any advice you have for anybody that's trying to get into that realm?
Anybody trying to get into the realm of cosplay, I would tell them just do it. What happens, and this is a phenomenon you see with LARP too. People will want to be in the space, they'll want to do stuff in the space, and they'll be like, well, I can't do it until it's perfect. It has to be perfect. Well, here's a spoiler. The Deadpool suit that you saw me wearing at Greenville Comic Con, that's definitely not my first take at Deadpool. Like, there are many iterations and many upgrades that came along the number of years that I've done that character. I did not walk out from zero to that as my cosplay.
You had to crawl before you ball.
Yeah, I had to crawl before you ball.
You got like the little the suit setup, like where you like the beginning all the way down, like Iron Man. Like,
I was literally about to say, like, I walk in my closet in the morning and a voice says, "Good morning, Mr. Wilson." No, so I in a way yes, in a way no. Like, I have the old suits, I have them like hanging up in my closet, in my cosplay room. The movie did me favors by introducing Deadpool with the Desert Eagles like on his legs, because those are much lighter than what I used to carry. Yeah. So again, leatherwork, whatever. I had made some drop leg panels for older versions of my Deadpool suit, and so they are like a full-on panel that sits on the side of the leg. And I had custom built the strapping and everything. I lined the back of them with like buckskin, so they're all like super nice. Like, they're like, when you see them, you're like, oh my gosh, like that's a bit extra. But I had a pair of 1/1 scale MP5K submachine guns, and they got a custom muzzle brake on them. It looks like the diamond pattern for like a meat tenderizer. And so they sat on my legs, and they're like 5 to 7 pounds a piece, like because they're metal, like a carbon like receiver, but like full metal upper kind of deal. But and when we picked them up, they look real. And aside from the orange tip on the end.
Yeah. It's like that pellet gun.
But you would keep the orange tip up there?
Well, those absolutely. I mean, because they literally look like a real gun. They're just sitting on the leg. And it's hilarious because actually, when I first moved to North Carolina and I first started doing stuff, I was at a free comic book day event. And it was one of the first times I actually suited up as Deadpool here in North Carolina, and I happened to see if there was a cop outside working the event. And so before I had strapped up, I went over and I said, "Hey man," I said, just out of curiosity, I had looked at the site, I looked at everything. I didn't see anything about like a weapons policy, but you obviously look like you're doing security stuff here. So is there any sort of restriction? Like, is there anything I should be mindful of? Here's what I'm doing, blah blah blah. And he was like, "Oh no, that's super cool that you even bothered to ask." He goes, "There's a lot of people here, communication." But he's like, "Yeah," he said, "There's a lot of people here with prop weapons, you're fine, right?" So I go back to the car, strap these things on my leg, come walking back across the parking lot. I had some guy stop me, and he's like, "So, are you the Deadpool that was at this other event, blah, 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 blah?" And I'm just like, "Oh, no, like, I just came out here for the day." He goes, "Oh, I didn't think so." He goes, "Because the Deadpool that was over there, his guns look really, really real." And, like, he starts on this whole thing, like, talking to me about, like, gun laws in North Carolina and all this other stuff. And, dude, and I'm just like, man,
Party pooper.
I'm just here to free comic book day. I'm just here to be Deadpool at free comic book day. Like, I'm not here trying to, like, make a statement about anything. And it's like, whatever. At the end of the day, you do you, boo-boo. But here's the thing. I'm going to take the time, and I even said this, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to walk up to this guy, this cop who's working this event, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said to this dude, I said, "Look," I said, "be the laws what they may, right? At the end of the day, that guy right there, he's got an actual job that he's doing, right? Me, I'm a guy in costume out here having a fun time. I'm not trying to make his job any harder than it has to be, and I'm not trying to make anybody else freak out if they see Deadpool walking across, guy dressed as Deadpool walking across the parking lot with what, for all intents and purposes, look like real MP5Ks strapped to the leg."
How important is it to engage with people in the community?
I would say if you take that knob and you turn, it goes from 1 to 10, and you turn that knob up to 11 and then break it off, it is super important. Because here's the thing. The communities, whether it's LARPing, whether it's music, whether it's cosplay, whatever, like those communities that you're in, at the end of the day, they are a community, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not engaging with people in that community space in a way that is wholesome and creative and whatever, you're going to watch that community kind of rot from the inside, or you're going to watch it fall apart from the inside. People are going to lose interest. They're going to look at it and say, like, "Oh, I wanted to be part of this, but I was basically gate kept out of this because nobody, I couldn't figure out how to get in. I couldn't figure out how to talk to people or hang out with people. I felt like I wasn't wanted there." And so that's one of the cool things you're going to see is that a lot of people who are in the cosplay space, like they love interacting with new people. They love it, meeting other people that do the same kind of thing. And so again, it's an 11 out of 10 that you interact with people. You're all there to have a good time. You're all there to share in this nerdy hobby, whether it's actually cosplay or whether it's going to conventions or whether it's any of the things that come along with the convention space. You find a lot of things that really kind of to intersect in that area. Okay. And going back to the point of the cosplay thing for me, kind of I'll call it snowballing and becoming more and more of a thing that I do on the regular. If it was not for that interaction, those things that I'm doing right now in the cosplay space, they wouldn't be. And the organizations that I'm attached to, they wouldn't be. Because at the end of the day, we're all out there, we're all interacting with people, we're all trying to build a community that people want to be a part of and people enjoy being a part of once they're a part of it.
Yeah. So. And look, rivers go around the streams, and them streams meet to make other rivers, and that's how you meet more people and you branch out in life. And Johnny Five just broke the knob off on talking about how we branch out to the community. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, I'm loving this.
I'm loving it, man.
This is times, man.
We had to do something different, man. We had to, instead of just sitting here talking to y'all with just us, we brought in somebody else. We can talk about what they do in life, and we can all come together positively and give our viewpoints on things. This is amazing, man. I swear.
It's that time, people. I see it coming. We got a commercial break coming, and then we have another guest that's gonna pop up out of here. We had enjoyed Johnny Five being here. He has go, but he has sent a friend of ours to come and finish the.
Well, I super appreciate you guys asking to be here. It's been great, ever since we started talking, kind of planning out, me coming out to hang out with you guys, chat with this stuff, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys are gonna do in terms of the other cool stuff that exists in the, I'll call it the scene and adjacent to the scene, the geographical area, all the cool stuff that we have going on. Because there's so much stuff. This is just the surface level of the iceberg. It's not even the tip. It's just that surface level.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what you guys are gonna do with that.
What was the Voyager name? Christopher Columbus.
Yeah.
We got a Christopher Columbus to other aspects in life. We can't just sit around in our aspects. We gotta go and check out other stuff, and that's everybody. So this episode, we giving y'all, us too, we're getting an insight on it just like y'all are. So we have somebody here that can explain it better than us just looking on TV or looking in a book or looking on YouTube. We got somebody here that can explain it right in front of us.
It's important, especially the stuff you were talking about, the communication and being respectful of other people's places. Hopefully some of these people can view the video and like it, please. And, subscribe.
Well, if they don't, I hear there's certain contract mercenaries available in North Carolina or operating in and around the North Carolina area that you might be able to leverage for some support on that.
Yeah, let me get that number before you leave.
Yeah, I can make that happen. I'm pretty well connected.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, look, this has been one half of this episode, man. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the post notification bell so you don't miss anything that's going on, man. This is our guy, Johnny 5. Does anybody want to shout out or say
oh my gosh, I feel like I should pull out a wall scroll and just unroll it here, because again, I very briefly scratched the surface, but there are so many people that I interact with. But what I will say is the variant. I'm going to mention the variant first and foremost because I do work with them. I am the director of cosplay now with them. And we do a photo booth at conventions largely around North Carolina, but we're starting to branch out. And in 2023. Oh baby, we got some stuff coming down the pipe for 2023 that I can't wait for people to see. So we got that going on. I mentioned my good friend John V. I mentioned Jenna Say What. I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of our other cool people at the variant. I got Lil Moon. I got Tommy Dahmer. I got RJ, Tommy, Victoria, Fox, all of our talented photographers. John does, work with us there too. We got a bunch of new photographers that are coming on board, my buddy Jacob. We're growing, we're doing. Like I said, I could go on and on and on and on with the number of people I could rattle off here.
We're going to try to get all of y'all in the description. Shout out to all y'all, man. For real.
Again, I'm going to have to do that wall scroll. And then you're
hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye.
We could just take the camera down and scroll like movie credits.
Right.
That would be really funny.
It would.
That's that drip, son.